Hello and welcome to this week's Roundup by blockchaingamer.biz. I'm your host, Jenny Jordan. With me today is co-host John Jordan, and it's Friday, the 8th of December, and we have plenty of news. We've got Phonemakers, Aperion, if that's how you say it.
Aperion, I think.
Aperion sounds cool, but anyway, they moved from Polygon to Ronin. We've got some investments. Significant one into Mocaverse, 11.88 million, and Endless Clouds. So let's raise some money. We've got NFL Rivals, which has broken 2 million in NFT trading volume. We have some updates about the Sandbox and where they're heading towards in 2024. We have had a couple of end of year features up on the website today. I thought we'd talk about some sort of views on what was the most important news, most significant sort of in blockchain gaming the past year, and also predictions for the coming year. Merit Circle has announced they're going to Beam. The Beam is going to Immutable. Gods on Chain has got a collaboration with Amazon Prime Gaming, and loads more to come. If you want to check out the sort of bigger stories, the whole stories, I should say, go to our website, blockchaingamer.biz, and you can follow us on Twitter, BCGBiz. We're also on LinkedIn. And I just want to put in a plug for the Pocket Gamer Connect in London in January. Excuse me, it's lovely today. Where we will be revealing the top 50 blockchain gaming companies of 2024. That awards is currently on the way. You can have your say by going adding your suggestions, adding your favorite companies on the poll. You can find it on our website. You can find it through our Twitter. And let's get into it now. Hi John, how are you doing?
The other thing, we've got a lot of news and we've got a lot of winter snuffles as well.
We do, yeah.
I had it early this week, and I've given it to you. So that's maybe I'll have to do more talking this week.
You probably got it at in Finland last week, didn't you?
I don't know actually.
You seem to always come back from conferences full of bugs. Children in school obviously always comes home during the winter with new stuff. Yeah, so let's start talking about the end of year features that we were looking at. So we basically have asked a few prominent experts in and developers in Web3 gaming this year, and we have been asking them 5 questions, of which one is what was the most significant news in 2023 in terms of the industry, obviously, or in terms of people's own kind of projects and games. And it's very interesting actually to see the very different responses you get. So we had Proof of Play's Amit Mahayan says that the fact that we now surpassed 1,000 Web3 games in active development, and he predicts that of those on-chain gaming is only going to be on the up in 2024. Whereas Fun Games Paul West says it's the Unity pricing, which was one of the biggest shocks, I suppose, in the more general gaming space, not just in terms of Web3 games. But he's also looking kind of has a quite positive outlook, thinking that a better sentiment is sort of slowly creeping into the crypto space, and I guess we'll see if he's right. Quick Saves, Elina Alpronen, she says it's a trial of the SBF in light of the FTX collapse. Actually, that happened in 2022, but obviously how everything is sort of played out has kind of been more in 2023. And so I was thinking about that actually, John. What do you think? Do you think that's in any way significant to the changing of sentiment in Web3, maybe crypto generally, I suppose, and Web3 gaming particularly?
No, I mean, I think as sort of just the way our brains work in general about everything, we always have a problem with causation and correlation. So stuff's happening all the time, and actually very, very little of the stuff that changes in the world changes because there's a sort of specific reason that you can sort of pin down at the time why it happened. Obviously, some things do, but actually a lot of stuff is just sort of we could say from one point of view just sort of happens, and then we sort of scrabble around to put some reasons around why that thing happened. And obviously, that's a lot to do with maybe I'm falling into my own trap here, but there's lots of talk these days of sort of narratives around companies and how narrative's an important thing and all this sort of stuff. And I guess the stuff lines up so nicely that it's very hard to sort of disagree with the fact that the Sam Bankman-Fried trial sort of ended, and then it's almost like literally straight after crypto, the price of Bitcoin started to go up. I mean, it's just almost too neat. I mean, clearly on the downside, from 2022, Tether blowing up, and then Three Arrows Capital blowing up, and then Celsius blowing up, and then BlockFi blowing up, and BlockFi was after FTX blowing up. So the downside is fairly easy. That it's just sentiment goes to the floor, and then just structurally, technically, all these companies run out of money because the price of crypto has gone down, and their financial dealings can no longer, are all liquidated. So that's sort of on the downside. On the upside, I think it's just much harder, and I think, crypto is a very sentiment-driven thing. I mean, a lot of financial things are sentiment-driven in some ways, but crypto is very much like that. I mean, obviously, beneath it is sort of macroeconomics and interest rates and inflation, all that sort of stuff. So I think at the bottom level to sort of crypto sentiment being better is that interest rates, inflation is sort of, at this point at least, most people would think inflation is sort of under control. Inflation in most places is going down, even though it's higher than people want. Interest rates, all the central banks have stopped putting interest rates up pretty much, and now the expectation, maybe optimistic, is that they're going to start reducing rates in 2024. So from that macro side, everyone feels quite positive for the future, and all the bad stuff, the really bad stuff they thought might happen, recessions and stuff in 2023, didn't happen. So that and then that feeds into sort of sentiment about crypto. And as soon as to be fair, like the Bitcoin price has been going up for a year, really. It went down a lot, but at some point it hits the bottom, and then it sort of crawls its way back up, up and down, with volatility. But as soon as it breaks its all-year high, which it has done now, and obviously I don't know what it is these days, broken $40,000, $44,000, I think, at one point. Then everyone sort of gears up again. It's sort of like, it's been 2 years since the last sort of bull run. And just in a sense, people have sort of had enough of it being a bear, and in a sense they're sort of almost willing the sort of the bull run to happen again. And we'll see, because obviously crypto is a small part of the financial sort of services sector, but the worst hasn't happened. And I guess the interesting thing, going back to maybe gaming, which is what we should be talking about, is I'm probably an optimist on most things, but I sort of thought the start of 2023 would actually see a lot of blockchain games companies sort of come to the fore, and that gaming would sort of drive a sort of the crypto cycle this time round. And that's that wasn't correct, but I think we're seeing some of that this time round. So obviously the reason that everyone's much more enthusiastic and happy is the Bitcoin price has gone up, but the sort of the new thing I think people are talking about very much, I mean, they're still using the horrible term GameFi, which I really hate. And that's sort of more of an Asian term, really. But you're starting to see this quite a lot now, and that's partly because if you look at sort of token prices, which is people do look at, is things like Big Time have done really well, Shrapnel's done really well, Merit Circle / Beam has done phenomenally well. It's almost done 1,000% up, that token. So you're actually, instead of people just going, talking about, we love games and crypto games are going to be great, you're actually seeing people sort of, speculate on these tokens, which, obviously can go up as well as down, or down as well as up. But I think you're also seeing a sort of a groundswell of proper games, so whatever you think about them, stuff like, Phantom Galaxies and Shrapnel having its, early access beta, and, Symbiosis or Symbiogenesis or Symbio, whatever it's called, from Square Enix coming out next week, I think. Ubisoft's doing its thing. It's Champions Tactics. I think it's actually launching. Is it launching this year? But certainly the NFT things happening. It's just a lot of.
I think the Warlords Mint is this year.
Warlords
isn't it?
Mint, yeah.
It's
So there's
launching.
whether those games are good or not, or it's sort of those sort of serious. There's more sort of serious companies now who have thought about this sort of stuff and been building for a while, are sort of coming to the fore. So you're sort of seeing a sort of collision of two. Crypto sentiment is up, and then actually these sort of good games are coming. Zynga, obviously, with their thing as well, Sugar Town. So just a lot sort of accumulating up, and in a positive market that's sort of rising. So I think going back to your end of year sort of original discussion, I think if we'd done this a month ago, you would have had a very different. Everyone would have been. We've sort of made it through this year and hope 2024 will be better. Whereas I think now everyone's much more. Maybe puts the blinkers a little bit on how bad 2023 was, and isn't because they're now so positive for the, what they think is going to happen in 2024. We'll see.
Yeah. And it kind of funnily, a lot of people seem to still be talking about that that title that's going to break it, and the AAA, that's going to be strong and good on its own terms, kind of thing. With despite of blockchain, it's not going to be that kind of thing. But is that the wrong perspective? Do you think? It's like because obviously a blockchain game needs to have strong, good, intentional blockchain integration, and not just be a really strong game and then maybe have a little bit of blockchain. What do you think about?
I think people have different views on that. I mean, I get maybe there you're saying
maybe lots of opinions on it.
Maybe there you're saying a little bit on how how much blockchain does sort of a game need, and I guess that is, it's a balancing act. I mean, every project has to find its own sort of sweet spot. I guess you would still say that the sweet spot for the amount of blockchain and the ease of onboarding is sort of less blockchain and more easy onboarding. So I think that's probably still where the bulk of stuff is. And I guess when we talk about it, examples like NFL Rivals, a mobile game through the App Store, which people are buying NFTs in and really not knowing that they're buying NFTs. Very small percentage of people who. Very small percentage of people have bought NFTs in that game, sort of thing. But an even smaller percentage actually know those are NFTs. There's no wallet in there; it's all sort of behind the scenes. So, not that game I would say is massively successful.
So on that note, let's move on.
Okay,
we spent way too much time on the introduction. Let's talk about NFL Rivals.
Yep.
It wasn't long ago that they broke 1 million in NFT trading volume,
3 months.
and now they've broken 2 million. So 3 months ago, good. And Mythical Games actually published an interesting take on kind of how to build a sustainable kind of blockchain economy with their kind of myth token that spans over all of their games. So tell us a bit more about that and kind of your...
So
you had some opinions on that, as well.
I think in general, I know Mythical fairly well. I've studied them really over the years, so maybe I'm slightly overly critical to them because I hold them maybe to a higher standard than other companies. Maybe I don't know, but I guess the first thing to say, both me and you play NFL Rivals and have bought a lot of NFTs, or not expensive NFTs, but NFTs in it. So I do sort of play it fairly regularly. I'm not a massive American football fan, but I can sort of see what they're doing with that game, and so I think it is a very interesting one to watch. So what's happened is they've not announced it. We've just seen it on Crypto Slam that there's been $2 million spent trading the NFTs. So that's not people have spent $2 million buying NFTs. That's people have spent whatever it would be. I know, let's say $1 million buying NFTs, and then there's been $1 million of trading those between other players. So it's not a massive sum of money, clearly. But it sort of shows some progress, and you can sort of look at some of the numbers of wallets. It's still in terms of that game, you can get NFTs through as rewards, and you can get them through sort of gacha boxes and stuff like that. So people who are sometimes getting those NFTs not spending any money at all, they're just getting them through playing the game. You can buy specific NFTs in the game using a special currency they've got, and then you can, if you go full sort of blockchain in this case, you can go to the website and trade on the marketplace. So there's lots of different ways in which people can touch NFTs. So I can't remember the exact numbers, but there's less than 10,000 people have sort of bought and sold NFTs in terms of like the marketplace stuff, and I think I can't remember, 100,000 had owned, there's 100,000, over 100,000 wallets own NFTs. So you can see the majority of stuff is very much people playing the game and just getting NFTs, not knowing they're NFTs really, not knowing they can resell them, and then there's a little core of people who are trading, So that's sort of what we'd expect, and that's definitely how Mythical have designed that game. I guess the other thing they then put out, which was interesting, so they basically highlighted the daily in and outflows of money into that game. So you can sort of see how much, because every activity there is basically runs on the Myth token, which is on their Mythos chain. And you can just see there's a few days where more money comes out of the game than into the game, because obviously people can cash out, they can sell all their NFTs and cash out their Myth tokens into their bank account. That's one of the points. But the vast majority of days, and on a very high scale, there's more money coming in, because obviously people are spending money to buy cards, and then they're playing those cards. And they sort of overemphasize this a little bit. I think the game's only been going for like 6 months, so you'd sort of be worried if people were spending money, then going, this game's rubbish, and then sort of cashing it all out immediately. So they were saying 65% of the money that's gone into the game has stayed in the game, and they were calling this natural staking, which was a sort of a term they've made up.
Although I would like to just add that the marketplace has not been live for 6 months. I mean, the game has been in soft launch for that long, but the marketplace came a bit later, and I would think that is what made it take off. A little bit made on sort of people trade that didn't really know that they're buying NFTs kind of thing.
Yeah, I think they said
who before in the initial stage, I would think that the people holding the people having NFTs would have been people who were very aware that they were NFTs, if you know what I mean.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think that's the case really. And then they did say when they added the option for people to buy individual NFTs using the in-app purchase currency, then the amount of money spent on NFTs doubled in a day. So I think there's people are just like people like the functionality of buying these individual characters, even though they're fairly expensive. They don't know they're NFTs. I mean, that's definitely the case. So we'll sort of see what's going on there. The big thing for them, as you say, is the Myth token is across all their games. So at the moment, that's mainly NFL Rivals. They've got this Nitro Nation game, which has been, they've really not put any marketing into it. It's been very slow. I don't think they've got many downloads on it. That's obviously waiting for next year. And also next year they've got the mobile version of Blankos, which is sort of the most interesting thing, because that's a game that has it's been going for a long time, and did have a fairly good core audience of people who were spending, buying quite a lot of these NFTs at quite high values, and the values have gone down a lot. So when that gets remade as a mobile game, and that game gets put into the Mythos chain as well, because at the moment it's not, that'll be interesting, because there are people who are some big spenders in that game, and so we'll sort of see. We'll get a better idea how that economy's going, I suppose. But I think as I've always said, Mythical are sort of one to watch, because they know, as much as anyone does, they know what they're doing, and they're well funded, and they have good product. So they're sort of like a sort of lodestar in the space, I think.
Good. Right, let's move on. So Funi Magus is the latest developer to decide to migrate from Polygon to Ronin. We've seen that happening a few times now, I think. At least Pixels and ATZ Games has done that migration. So obviously the game Aperion, I don't know how you say it. Tell us a bit more about that, John.
Yeah, as you say, this is something that we're going to see more of. I mean, that's all the talk in the sector is basically people on Polygon. Polygon's not supporting games anymore, because that's not what they're doing. They're doing tech stuff. So basically, I wouldn't say all the games on Polygon are leaving, but a lot of the high profile ones can get better deals elsewhere. So you're sort of seeing them go to Immutable, Ronin, what's the other one? The Treasure DAO one on Arbitrum, and there's so many, obviously bases and there's lots of L2s that these things are going to. So that's just something that's happening, structural sort of thing. And obviously Ronin is sort of really on the up. That, as you said before, Pixels moved from Polygon to Ronin, had a massive spike in users. It's still doing about 80,000 users after it's sort of got rid of some bots. Massively successful. So
I saw some stats this week about reaching over 500,000 Ronin wallets.
yeah, that was. I wasn't sure that was unique though. I think that was unique dailies. So I think. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, yeah, that was. I wasn't sure
Just
about
another
that.
sign of it is being on the
Yeah.
up on the
No,
right.
and definitely. I mean, the other thing, without not investment advice, all that sort of stuff, but the Ronin token price has gone from I don't know about 50 cents or whatever to about 170 or something at the moment. So there's a massive sort of groundswell around that, and that sort of also plays into what I was saying that crypto sentiment is obviously mainly focused on Bitcoin and ETH and those sort of big cryptos, but gaming is now sort of seen as a sort of a big part of that in a way. Previously, it's been like DeFi or NFTs, and now it is properly gaming is seen as a serious industry that blockchain is coming to disrupt. Whether that happens in the next in next year or it takes 10 years again, who knows? But so Ronin is definitely is the place that everyone wants to be. I guess we're still on the case where this Aperion game, you've got me pronouncing it right, Aperion, is
Sorry.
it is I mean, where's the wrong term? It is a complex game. So the only bit that's out, that there is a battle, sort of as a roguelike deck building, sort of battle element to it, and there's a demo of that on the App Store, on the Epic Game Store, which you can play, and that's sort of fairly straightforward. But even that's a little bit complex, I would say. But that's only one part of the game. So it's a sort of a god game where you're a god and you can sort of get planets like NFTs, land NFTs, and then you sort of you as a god come down to your planet as a sort of a character, and you do loads of stuff on the planet, including this combat thing, and then when the planet sort of maxes out, you can then blow up the planet and collect some resources, and then sort of keep doing it over and over again, and you can breed planets together and all this sort of stuff. So there's a whole bunch of guild stuff they put in there as well. So it's a fairly complex sort of game. I'm not quite sure. I can sort of see how it would work. I could also sort of see how it could go wrong. Whereas, Pixels is like a nice little social game, and it's farming, and everyone knows how to make those games. As soon as you make something very sort of innovative, then you can quite easily maybe the roguelike people love it, but they hate all the god game stuff, or the god game people love it but hate all the combats. It's quite easy to mix up your audience. So I'm sort of less bullish on that as a game that's going to come on and do really well on Ronin. But it's definitely we're going to see more games announced on some big games are going to announce on Ronin. In the next sort of 6 months. So it's definitely going to be growing from that point of view. I guess the thing is, what is the audience there? What sort of games do they want? Is it just going to end up being Axie Infinity? I guess that's seeming less likely now, that maybe Axie Infinity sort of doesn't matter anymore because Ronin is such a big success and it's the big gaming chain. As they've sort of, I don't know if they've said it this time, but they're trying to position themselves as king of the gaming chains, and all, which is sort of a little bit what Immutable's doing. So now the battle, instead of being Immutable versus Polygon, it's now Immutable versus Ronin, and all that sort of stuff.
Good. So we've already mentioned the investment. Endless Clouds raised 2.5 million for Treeverse and Capsule Heroes, but the bigger investment this week has been Animoca's investment in Mocaverse, 11.88 million. So Mocaverse is doing well, you have to say. The Mocha NFTs is set up to three
over 3 ETH, yeah.
Over 3 ETH even.
No, doing very well, yeah. I mean, again, the issue here is sort of in a speculative mood, everything sort of goes up like that. But I think there's still a little bit of uncertainty about quite what that project ends up being, because it's sort of like a layer across a lot of Animoca stuff. So you can sort of, you can sort of earn points and they give you rewards, but it is hard to build those things out. Those sort of community layers. I mean, Animoca will have a better chance than anyone because they have so many contacts with other games and so many portfolio companies. But I mean, that is a pretty difficult task to accomplish, I think.
I think they exceeded 100,000 of mints of Mocha IDs this week, and although that doesn't sort of mean very much financially, it just shows that people are engaged. Community is engaging in in much more than you would say have done earlier in the year.
I mean, from what I can gather, Mocaverse for them originally, as it originated, was sort of like a little fun little NFT thing, and they sort of announced it, and then they sort of were quite surprised at the amount of interest people had, and it's sort of grown from there. It's not something they've thought top down. It's sort of they thought about it, and it's sort of grown up. So that's the way to do it. I wonder if, just from what we're talking about, is the way this eventually grows, it ends up being its own L2 or its own L3. That I think you sort of sometimes need more than just sort of social layer. Sometimes you actually need some sort of tech layer that you can sort of, and you can certainly imagine. I'm totally making this up now, but you can imagine in a year's time, Mocaverse has launched its own blockchain with its own token. But you can just that's sort of the way that these sort of projects end up. That's sort of their end state. If you do have a community, why do you want sort of these XP points or something like that? That's not really how blockchain. The momentum and the sort of focus is, well, let's have a blockchain with some tokens, which could be for speculative reasons, obviously, but equally that could be how you actually glue those things together, is being able to give out sort of tokens. And Animoca, is a company that has stock, shares, but doesn't have a token. It has lots of individual games with tokens. None of that's worked out terribly well, I would think. So you can sort of imagine that that's where it ends up. But whether they are planning that at the moment, I'm absolutely making that up. So
yeah. And so, not quite breaking news, because there have been hints of it before, but with the Sandbox latest changelog development report, and the launch of their latest game client 0.9.7, which is as close to 1 as you can get. So we kind of expect the full game launch sometime soon. However, it's been in development for a long time, so we might just keep on going. Anyway, so with that game client coming out, there's also been pretty much confirmed, and later on also confirmed from the headquarters, that they are working on a mobile version of the Sandbox. So that should be coming in 2024. That's what we're looking at. But that's kind of, as often, promises and then.
There's two things here. One is the technical ability. So basically, what you spotted, actually, it was a good spot from you, is in the changelog they said something about we've improved the low-level rendering. We've improved the rendering so it works well on low-level Android devices or something like that. So, I don't think they've ever. Sandbox was originally a mobile company. All their games have been released on mobile, so it's not a great sort of stretch that they're going to release the Sandbox on mobile. Although, I've not looked out for this. I've never seen them talking about this sort of actively. But there's a technical thing, like, can we get the Sandbox sort of client to work on mobile devices? That's just something you can do or you can't do. I mean, obviously you can do it, but so how much do you have to sort of, what features do you have to cut to get it to work on very low Android devices? I guess that's the decision they need to make. And then there's the business side, and the how do you put out the mobile version. So obviously you put it out through the app stores. That comes with restrictions on what you can do. Actually, the Sandbox doesn't. I mean, it has blockchain in terms of ownership of items, but not really. It's not a heavy-duty blockchain game in terms of what happens in the game. There's stuff around it, like staking and things on website on web through their web interfaces. But the game itself is pretty light. So they probably wouldn't have that many problems getting it through app stores. But obviously that's a discussion they have to go through. And Apple and Google, if they were doing that, would like them to have a shop where you're buying things with an in-app purchase currency. So they have to come up with their own currency that wasn't a cryptocurrency that people could buy things in. So that's an added sort of complexity. But that's more about the business side of it than the technical side. So it may. It's good to know they're thinking about it. Would it happen in 2024? I mean, it may do probably I would say towards the end of 2024. It might be 2025. I don't think they're in any mad rush. They've sort of got enough on their plate launching the thing on PC.
Yeah. Right, and we're going to close with the news of Merit Circle, the gaming DAO. They launched their Beam subnet this year. Well, they announced it this year, and then they've been working on it and been in testnet for a while now. It's on the mainnet, but they have now announced that they are going to collaborate with Immutable and bring their gaming ecosystem to Immutable's zkEVM
Yep.
What does that mean to Immutable? Is that a big deal? Bigger deal for Merit Circle?
Yeah, I don't know. It's sort of a bit of a weird one, actually. So, to say, Merit Circle are a company that I look at a lot. I mean, they're interesting. They're a DAO. They started out as like an Axie sort of DAO, and then very quickly realised they didn't really want to do that. But they were quite canny and sort of raised a lot of money and have invested into a lot of games. But they've also been trying to do more than that. So they have this sort of investment thing, and then they decided they wanted to make games. So they got this. I can't remember what it's called. This trading card game, Ember Sword, not Ember Sword. That's a different one. But anyway, that's embarrassing.
Eden Horde.
Eden Horde. Yeah.
Yeah.
They did some nice stuff around that. Those NFTs, like an interactive story with some NFTs in it, and now they're doing a trading card game. And then they decided they want to do their own blockchain, which they call Beam. So that's sort of when I talk about Mocaverse. Does it end up as a block? I mean, does it end up as its own infrastructure? That's sort of where these projects. If you're in blockchain and you think about how blockchain incentives work, that's sort of where you end up, I think, these days. So they decided they were going to build their own thing called Beam. They decided they were going to do it on Avalanche. Avalanche is a blockchain that has these things called subnets, which make it easy for people to set up their own blockchains. So that's a good place to go. And they did. I mean, I don't know. I'm not technical in terms of know is it a good blockchain or not. I don't know. But because because they've invested in a lot of games and they're well known in the ecosystem, and their tokens are worth. As a DAO, it's worth $100 million in terms of their token. You can go on their website and look at it. They have a big transparency treasury thing. So they're just really well run and really well sort of structured in terms of the game space. I would say the games on Beam are not ones that thrill me. Maybe I'm being a bit mean. So in a sense, it's a bit like Ronin, but obviously the pull of Axie means they can get sort of high profile games on there. Whereas Beam at the moment, I think they're solid games, but they're not ones that that even I haven't heard of some of them. So it's sort of interesting from that point of view that their token, as I say, has gone up. I mean, ridiculous, like 900% or something. So there's a lot of sort of speculation around that, I think, for various reasons. But then announcing they're going to go to Immutable as well. It's sort of I'm not entirely sure sort of how that works, to be totally honest. If you're running something on so Avalanche and then running something what will be on Polygon, because it's Polygon's EVM, zero proof EVM sort of chain. I don't quite know why you want both those things. I guess probably that there are some games who don't want to run on Beam as a Avalanche tech. They're already running on Polygon or something, and they just want to they want to run on Polygon. So it allows Merit Circle to onboard maybe some bigger games that wouldn't otherwise want to do all the redesign they need to do to go on Avalanche. Mm-hmm. So it sort of plays into Beam's incredible growth over this year, and we'll see where that ends up. But in a sense, now sort of Beam is, as we sort of discussed, Beam is now also sort of a little bit. Even though it's running on Immutable, it's sort of still maybe a little bit competing with Immutable. I don't know, and obviously Ronin and all those other chains because. There's only so many great games. There's only 10 top 10 games, blockchain games, and where they go is sort of a little bit where the audience goes. So everyone's sort of a little bit fighting over those.
So I often ask that question: does it really matter which chain you go on? But it clearly does because gaming ecosystems and developers seem to pay a lot of attention to.
I think it matters less.
They think they. I mean, it might be like that. It does matter what kind of audience you're targeting, and then it actually matters a lot more than we sort of tend to think it does.
Yep.
Yeah. And on that note, we are going to round up this very long waffly discussion. We will see you all back next week.
Yes.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.